Talking to Death is released every Friday and brought to you absolutely free. But if you want ad-free listening and exclusive bonuses, subscribe to Tenderfoot Plus at tenderfootplus.com or on Apple Podcasts.
Talking to Death is a production of Tenderfoot TV and iHeartPodcasts. Listener discretion is advised.
And we are back. Well, I say we, but it's just me. Mike? No, it's just me. I'm alone in the office all by myself, but I see Dylan in front of me with headphones on, and it's awkward. He's just filming me. Hey, Dylan. Mike is at the beach, and I'm kind of jealous, to be honest. He's in Destin, and I was supposed to go too, but my schedule got all messed up, and I have like a million different obligations this weekend and next week. And I'd much rather be at the beach like Mike, but instead I'm not. So Mike, I'm pissed, but I'm also happy for you, and I hope you get sunburned. I have a really, really exciting guest today. This person is an absolute legend. He is one of the best, most talented journalists, I think, out there of all time. His name is Neil Strauss. He's been a writer and journalist for the Rolling Stone for years. This person has gained access to some of the most exclusive people in the world and written about them. And every time that we have a conversation together, I feel like I learn something new. He's a G. He's somebody that I can learn from, and I constantly do. I first met Neil a few years ago. We did a podcast together called To Live and Die in LA. And if you haven't listened to that, you definitely need to. It's an absolutely compelling story, true crime story. And he's the real deal. He is an investigative journalist who gets his hands dirty, is on the ground, making all the connections, stuff that's not easy to do. If you haven't listened to Live and Die in LA, you must. It's a must listen. Just go binge it right now. He also has a new podcast out with Tenderfoot that is just as good, if not better. It's called To Die For. And it's the most bizarre story about sexpionage. I didn't even know what that was when I first was pitched this idea. In the spy world, espionage, there's a thing. It's called sexpionage, where essentially a person uses the idea of sex or sex in general to gain access to people and get information and trick them. He builds this relationship with this woman, and she tells her story, and it's by far one of the craziest things I think I've ever heard in my life. That's also available now to binge. Go binge To Live and Die in LA and To Die For. I sat down with Neil to talk about his new show, talk about investigative journalism, life, and I think that you'll see what I'm talking about once you hear his interview today. So without further ado, from Tenderfoot TV in Atlanta by myself, here is your next guest, Neil Strauss.
Yeah, we were just talking before catching up. It's been a while since we saw each other, and we were trying to figure out how many podcasts you're doing. Mm-hmm. And I think we got it down to this is the weekly podcast. And then as far as seasonal, there's Up and Vanished, High Strange, Radio Rental, Dead and Gone. Mm-hmm. And each of those being 8 to 15 episodes.
You're stressing me out.
I'm stressed out.
I was like, wait a minute. For you. Don't keep naming them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a logistical juggle here.
Yeah.
But so far, so good. But at some point, I'm going to be like, uh-oh. It's really Up and Vanish right now that's kind of, taking a lot of my brain.
Right.
Because, doing a deep dive, long form narrative on an unsolved crime is just about as tough as it gets, I feel like, in journalism.
Yeah, I mean, the next podcast I'm doing for, which we haven't announced yet, but is literally it's been a year of constant work, so it takes me so long to do them.
Do you like the long part of it, or are you just used to that, or is that just the way it has to happen?
The answer is, I feel like if you're going to do something that's compose more documentary style. I feel like taking your time to really, really craft it so it's something you're just proud of forever, or feel accomplish the job you wanted to accomplish in the best way possible is important.
Where you feel like you did it though? Like, do you feel like it was perfect when you put it out, or do you not look at it that way?
The answer, that's a good question. In the moment I put it out, I feel that it's perfect. And once it's out and there's nothing I can do about it, I try to let go of it.
You have to,
right? Like I tell my friends if they're listening, like looking at a book I wrote or a podcast, I'm like, before it's out, I really want your critical feedback. Tell me everything that's wrong with it. Tell me all the mistakes. Just don't spare me anything. But once it's out, just tell me it's great.
It's too late now. Yeah. Just say good job.
Yeah, exactly. So are you doing any more besides those 5 that I mentioned?
I mean, not imminently, no. I mean, really, it's this show right now that we're focusing on, and it's Up and Vanish, the new season. It's a case in Alaska, so we've been going back and forth to Nome, Alaska, and we're really deep into it. We probably have 30 plus interviews and made some serious headway. Haven't started producing the actual episodes yet, like audio form, but have a good outline going. That'll be a whole gauntlet, but we've done it enough times and have enough people to help out that I feel like we're kind of just putting the shoes back on and trying to up the ante a little bit. Yeah. You know what I mean?
It's, man, I really think it's tough to, well, first I want to talk about your time management, and then I want to get to the toughness of really trying, like you said, you make headway on these cases, and you start to have a real idea what happened, and then getting the information out of someone's head who might be responsible.
Right.
Is such a challenge.
You do that.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a challenge to.
Is it challenging to you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to. There's a new case I'm looking at for To Live and Die in LA. And it's pretty clear what happened. It's just the craziest thing. I have like a good idea of, it's kind of dark, but hopeful for the family. I mean, they've been closely involved, but of where the body is and all these kinds of things. But they're, things where you can't match it. You can't. I don't want to give away too much.
But it doesn't all the way fit or something.
Where not that all they fit. You're missing a little piece of information that will draw a line from X to Y.
Yeah.
And everything around it points to that. But without that piece of information, you can't really say that.
Do you feel like there is a?
I wish I could be more specific.
In your head, is there a person that likely murdered somebody here? I mean, in your opinion?
In this case, they're like some people behaving like super suspiciously, whereas everybody's willing to help. Everybody's willing to get in and help out in any way possible who knows this person, except for some people who strangely won't.
How much do you rely on your gut instincts?
Yeah, I think you can't. You can't rely on your gut instincts.
Explain that to me then.
Yeah.
Do you ignore them, or do you just compartmentalize that?
I think you compartmentalize that as another. I think you have to compartmentalize it because your gut instincts can be just so wrong. If you think about this, think about social media. We spend too much time thinking about it. So whereas somebody reads a news article or sees someone, they take 3 pieces of information and people concoct an entire narrative out of 3 pieces of information. They think they know who somebody is because they have 3 pieces of information out of all the data of their life. And I think it's really easy when you're doing a podcast to take a couple pieces of information, think you have a narrative, get a few more, realize that narrative changes, get a few more and realize. And so I think you have to, your gut, how about this, and see if you agree with this.
Okay.
Your gut is information to investigate. So if your gut is saying this, well, that's something to investigate. But what you have to do is pull as many data points together as possible until possibilities start to eliminate themselves.
I tend to follow my gut, but I also consciously check myself.
Right.
Like, I go out of my way and say, hey, let's think about this from a different angle here.
Right.
And I know you've had that instinct, but sometimes that is not entirely correct because it's based on limited information or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it's a mix, but I've found that a lot of times it's pointing somewhere, or it will be a thing where my gut's telling me, don't waste your time over here.
Yeah, I mean, I found that if you get enough, I was going to write a book about some of the cases called "Everyone is Suspicious," and I maybe I'll still write it. I probably will.
That's a good title.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take that one.
Good. Okay, you can take it. You can do a podcast. Your seventh podcast.
Yeah, no,
Exactly.
You'll host it. I'm not doing
it. Yes. So, and the idea is that just everybody can start to look suspicious after a while. I remember with like season 2 of To Live and Die in LA with Elaine Park, we were just there are so many people who were suspicious in our life who we didn't put in the podcast, but we were like, oh my God, this is it. Her, as an example.
There was a behind the scenes moment where you're thinking, is this the person? And then you move past that or what?
Yeah, exactly. And that's about the data points where all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, her tattoo artist who she saw just right before she disappeared, was supposed to see and cancel the appointment, has this criminal record we didn't know about. And then you look up some stuff on social media and maybe there's a couple words that seem suspicious and you're like, oh my God, this could be it. And then you start investigating, talking to them and looking at all the other data points and realizing that's not a possibility. But literally you can name anyone sometimes in someone's life and they can start to look. And by the way, I do want to say just for the record that tattoo artist, I've spent some time with him and he's a great guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good dude.
Good dude. Yeah.
Not the guy.
But the question.
Just, is it human nature, you think, for people to want to connect the dots or something and make things fit when they don't necessarily objectively fit?
Yeah, I think humans love narrative. We love stories. Storytelling is how we get around. That's why we learn through metaphor. All the works of spiritual and religious tradition, right, are stories through which we learn these lessons. And we're just like meaning-making machines. So we can just look at 2 or 3 pieces of data and think we have it all figured out. And I think that's the danger of some of this stuff.
So what fixes that? Self-awareness or something?
What fixes this is like humility.
Yeah.
Humility and accepting uncertainty.
Right.
So to say, maybe that piece of data is true and that piece of data is true, but that doesn't mean that the third thing is then true.
Yeah. We don't have to conjure up an answer.
Yeah, because we fill in the gaps with story. Like you said, you might have a gut or an instinct on something and it feels right.
Right.
And then I can certainly think in these cases, other people I've spoken, I went to a dinner once and was talking about the case I was investigating. And everyone had their own theory and I named the suspects. Everyone had their own theory who did it. And their theory often had more to do with their own personal
like a projection of something?
Yeah, exactly. Like someone has a troubled relationship with an ex, so of course the ex did it, you know?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Right.
What's going on in your life? You know?
Right.
How's your ex?
Exactly. So sometimes our gut is just projection. By the way, to wrap up the other thought, it's even necessary. So to conclude...
Who did it? You're going to tell me who did it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Here's who did it. To conclude is you just have to get as many data points as possible and then research the accuracy of those data points because it's crazy. When I write a book, I fact check it like I spend months fact checking it. And I remember one of my books had statistics on infidelity in relationships. And we went and called the researcher who this was credited to, it was all over the internet, just to make sure it was true.
Yeah.
And I remember she said, I didn't say this, it's all over the internet. I can't stop it. This is not from my research.
Wow.
So literally we rely on so much information that's just wrong and inaccurate in our culture, or being friends with people who get written about in the media and things like that and knowing what the real story may be.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because it's often a little different.
Yeah.
I mean, I was doing a lot of just digging on all the work you've done in your career before we met here today, and just reminded again of all the cool shit you've done. And you've been a journalist, through and through for a long time. And I wanted to ask you, why do you like it?
Right. I think the reason is I'm just very curious, and I'm really more interested in what's happening now or next than anything that happened or I did before, if that makes sense. So I think why I love
curiosity is driving you.
Yeah, it's totally driven by curiosity and trying to understand the world, and through that maybe trying to understand a little more about myself.
What have you learned about humans in general, having talked to so many different people and sometimes very deeply and in difficult situations?
see, what have I learned about humans in general? It's funny. There's my friend, Robert Greene. He wrote a book called The Laws of Human Nature, which I need to read. That might be the best place to answer that. He might be the best person for that question. But most humans are people they're just people trying their best, and really trying to figure it out. And I think the best thing I learned is really having empathy for everybody except for like literally, I think I've met one or two true psychopaths in my life.
Really? And who were they?
I can't say their names because I'm still scared of them. Like literally.
Well, really?
Yeah.
Like they're out and about? Like not behind bars or something?
One is, one isn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what's the safer one? Or is he imminently getting out?
I would just never say it.
Really?
Like, I mean,
it spooked you that bad?
I mean this, if you ever run across a true psychopath and hopefully.
Well, explain that to me then.
Okay.
What is a true psychopath here?
Yeah. There's a, I think there's a difference between a lot of people say, oh, my ex partner, whether business or relationship partner, was a psychopath.
It's tossed around a lot.
It gets tossed around a lot because they think, well, if they hurt me, they must be a psychopath because I'm a great person, right?
Okay, psychopath.
Yeah, okay, psychopath. But most people are just dealing with their own trauma and their own confusion, dealing with unresolved emotional issues. They're saying we're all victims of victims. What
does that mean?
That means like most people, this is going to be another thing we're going to say, what does that mean?
Okay.
But most people who perpetrate or do something bad to someone else do it from the position of them being a victim.
Them viewing themselves as the victim in this scenario?
Yes.
Okay, and what does that do if you're doing that?
It allows you to think that it's right to hurt someone else.
Okay. You're giving yourself permission to do something maybe ugly.
I mean, if you look at any historical atrocity, it was justified through a victim lens. If you really go look at whatever the
like
propaganda
a serial killer
was
or something, where my mom was
a serial killer's. What I'm saying is, a serial killer is different.
Okay.
So we're talking about the difference between people who just harm others and people who are actually psychopaths who enjoy harming others.
Okay, so you've met people
rare.
who just literally enjoy it. Okay,
right.
Yeah. What is this?
So that's the difference. That's what I was saying is like the reason why they're scary is because they literally get pleasure from hurting other people. Mm-hmm. That's literally their pleasure, the way we get pleasure from like a bike ride.
Right.
Yeah. And
they're consciously doing this.
Yeah, and if you're on their radar, you're a potential target.
Yeah, that's scary.
And so the reason you don't want to mention their name
like that.
is because you don't want to be on their radar.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
Don't bring me into this.
Yeah. I mean, literally, talked to someone once who said, like, I don't like to kill people because if you kill them, they're not around to fear you anymore.
That's pretty bad.
He likes to just maybe keep them in terror.
Wow.
Yeah. And so again, maybe that's a degree or a class of psychopath. I mean, I'm sure there's different people on the psychopathy range. But if you've met this and really didn't understand what evil was.
So you think that this is not excusable in some way from solely a mental illness or something, and that they're conscious enough that they're just making decisions and they want to hurt people?
I mean, to back it up, nothing's excusable or
of course,
but there's the boundary. There's
always like a blanket.
What we're trying to do, I think, if we understand why people perpetrate, maybe we can lessen it.
Right. Okay.
Right. And so by
get a wrangle on it.
Right. So it's not saying, oh, that's okay because you felt like you're a victim. We're not saying that.
Yeah. Like, oh, it's fine. No,
it's not. What it is saying is like, oh, this is the recipe for perpetration, and so we can maybe start to see the signs, intervene, see that kind of thinking, know how to protect ourselves, watch it happening in the culture, get smarter about
protect
this
ourselves
versus
and learn, prevent it,
versus saying, oh, they're just evil. They're just evil people doing evil things. That's not. They literally, people think they're right. They have to think they're right almost to do it if they're not a complete psychopath.
We were talking last night. I was just saying that out of almost all the people that I know, you're one of the people that can talk to others the best. And I think you have a lot of experience doing that, and you've probably talked to people who are very different than you, have, a checkered past. I was curious how you were able to get better at that at all, and what your journey's been like through learning about yourself, I'm sure, through that process.
Yeah, no, I thought about it more. By the way, because I prefer being on your side of the mic than mine.
I know. I'm so sorry. You're on my show.
Yeah, it's fine. Exactly. But I think that the reason is
you're good at it. So you already asked me questions. Yeah, he's done. He's good. See?
Exactly.
He's getting me.
We're still gonna get back to your time management.
Oh yeah, I'll let him ask a question in a second.
Yeah, I'm really because I really think and I'll get back to your thing about my about why I do that. I have some thoughts on that. Mm-hmm. But it is interesting. I think you're the only person I know. Most people just have a podcast and they do it, and then maybe they start like a side podcast. Right. But like you kind of the only person who like has a whole constellation.
Yeah.
Podcast constellation.
I just never chilled out.
Yeah. You're unique in the field.
Yeah. You need to slow down.
Yeah. Or maybe not.
But thank you.
That's who you are. I think that's.
I mean, honestly, when I first got into this space, I viewed this, and I think I was, at least a little bit correct on this, that I needed to make the most of this, right? This was going to be the thing that if I made it work, I could do all the other things that I want to do in my life too down the road. And so that it kind of was a blinders on thing for a couple of years, just kind of knowing that it might be kind of hard, but if you can build something bigger out of this, it will have been worth it. And just toughen up and try to do it because it could be better for you.
Yeah. Do you think in making the most of it that like you can make too much of it and then degrade either your quality of life or like people are kind of confused, like people can't kind of follow everything you're doing?
Absolutely. I mean, I think so. But I also think that, if we're in the time span of, 6 years or so, maybe almost 7, I don't know. I wanted to be able to show people that I can do other things, right? I wanted to make Radio Rental. That was a whole fictional world that I built that was like an anthology series of real stories, blending stuff that you kind of knew me from, and that I can world build too, right? I can do something over here, which is really what I wanted to do first, right? That was like what I was most into. I kind of fell into being a journalist, which sounds bizarre,
right?
So yeah, man, it's like a balancing act.
Yeah.
And if I didn't love it, I wouldn't have done this much stuff, right? I do like the freedom and liberation of, hey, every time you do this, it's a new adventure. Yeah. And I like the adventure mindset of life sometimes.
And there's freedom. I mean, you having also done the TV thing with Discovery, there's also like the freedom of, I feel like when you do a podcast, you really can communicate and say.
I learned real quick how much freedom I did not have anymore.
Yeah, right?
On the thing that I made by me, with me in it.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
That wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Right?
and imagine if they actually, and it's so funny how they don't, they're like, we want you because of your unique point of view and sensibility and take on these things.
Okay, right.
Then don't do what you do.
But don't give us any of that.
Yeah.
Do what we do. Yeah.
It's the weirdest business.
I've never understood it.
Yeah, it's the weirdest.
I'm sure you've experienced that too.
Yeah, it's the wildest thing. I remember like I was doing something for HBO and it was an hour-long drama. Mm-hmm. And then they said, we love it, but Entourage just left the air. We did a half-hour comedy to replace Entourage. So you can just turn to a half-hour comedy to replace Entourage. Mm-hmm. We'll put it on the air. So we do it. We turn it in. We go through like 18 drafts where they keep giving you notes, and then we get it. They're like, it's really good, but we're not looking for something to replace Entourage right now.
Okay, well, why do you say that?
It literally makes no sense.
They're just a walking contradiction.
Yeah, and I really made a mistake. It was a show with James Gandolfini before he passed, and he gave me the advice. And
how was he?
Always
was he cool?
He's like a beautiful, beautiful soul and person,
right?
like truly like great heart surrounded by this like gruff, this kind, gruff, no nonsense wall. He was just really like a really, and he gave me so much advice that I either took or regretted not taking it. And
what kind of stuff? Life stuff?
He was like, fuck him. His advice was like, fuck him. You do exactly what you want.
Oh, wow.
Don't listen to them because they're going to screw it up. And his other thing was, and the audience doesn't have to understand it. You don't have to explain nothing to the audience.
Really?
So he really was like very uncompromising artistic, but he was also right. I think when you watch something and it's pandering to the audience and you're trying to make sure everybody's there versus just really telling the story like you do in your podcast, the story you want to tell in the way you want to tell.
Right.
That's possible. Of course, you consider the audience, you make it interesting for the audience.
Of course. I don't want you to not like this.
Right. But you're not,
not tethered to you per se, right?
And he would say you should know, and your character should always know more than the audience.
Yeah, that is definitely true. I feel that I found.
Yeah, and he really like got it. So I should have taken that advice. But anyway, it's a weird business. Whereas doing a podcast, you can have just as big of a listenership and have creative control.
Yeah, and I've spoiled myself now. It's like going to anything else is going to be at least a little bit more difficult, unless I'm collaborating with other peers of mine who are just giving me a shot at being more in charge, which I think I could eventually get to that point. But I probably get one or two of those before I don't get that again.
Yeah, I mean, notes are great, feedback is great, all those things make something better.
Right.
But when it's this is our formula and what we do, and no, that won't work, and it's all fear-based stuff.
Yeah.
I think anything fear-based in anything creative is a detriment.
So back to my question.
So let's go back to your question.
All
Remember
these
your question.
people that you talk to, which see you're so good at talking to me, how are you able to make that connection with people that others may not be able to?
Yeah.
Or just from a black and white viewpoint, you'd think there's no way this guy would talk to you, but
Right.
they are.
Yeah.
How do you manage that?
Did a lot of interviews for Rolling Stone and the New York Times, like thousands of them, with some highly guarded people.
Actually, thousands of them at this point?
There might be.
Damn, that's a lot.
It might be. I mean, I know I've done thousands of articles. Maybe it's less interviews. Maybe
That's a lot. Yeah.
Maybe it's like high hundreds, close to 1,000. I don't know,
Wow.
but it's a lot. I mean, because I had a weekly column there, and I'd probably write about 5 articles a week there, and a weekly column that might have 2 or 3 interviews, or 2 interviews. You know what? Probably is if I even count everyone who I called just to get quotes and things like that, it's got to be thousands.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. All that fact checking you spend months on.
All
There
that
goes another
fact-checking.
1,000 people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the answer is this: not to try to use them for my purposes. You know,
Which are what?
which are
Telling this story?
which are, let's say you're interviewing some celebrity who has some scandal or something like that.
Sure.
And
Like today with me and you.
with me and you, right? Exactly. And so, but as soon as if you're speaking from the point of, I watch interviewers and it like hurts me. People interview someone and they think they're being a journalist by asking the hard hitting questions. So why did you say that about that other celebrity, or why did you do that? And then once you start coming from that judgmental that media judgmental place, well, how does someone act when they're judged?
If someone is judging me,
Yeah, it feels judgmental.
Fuck 'em.
What's that?
fuck them. I don't fuck with you then.
But you're stuck with them with the interview.
Not anymore.
You're out. You're like so long.
Yeah, I mean, unless I'm like being bolted to the chair. I mean, if I was really offended, I would at the very least, I would do probably what you're thinking right now. I would just say less.
Yes, exactly. Or a child
Right?
raised
If I'm
by
not leaving, I'm saying less and not telling you all the details that you want.
exactly. Or a child raised by a judgmental parent
Closing up.
doesn't show their authentic self
Yep.
because you don't want to be judged negatively, right?
Yeah.
And so one is not being judgmental, not trying to like ask questions to get answers. I try to like see the world through their eyes and through their point of view.
Like trying to really understand their perspective to
Right.
paint that picture.
Yeah. So if it's somebody who went through a breakup, the media question might be like, might be, why did you break up with that person, or how deeply impacted, they're doing some media thing, but what they're really thinking about is, God, I'm stressed out. I'm going through a real deep heartbreak, and everything is wrong and messed up about it in the media, and just compounding my pain.
Yeah.
And actually empathizing with what it's like to go through a breakup on this public level with people writing all this shit about it that probably isn't even true. They're going to feel heard and seen. It's not a technique. It's just I'm really trying to think of what's it like. It's hard enough to go through a breakup. All of us listening have gone through a breakup. I'm sure you've all gone through a hard breakup if we've gone through one. And it's hard and it's painful and it's confusing, and you can be shattered and not feel like yourself. And then imagine that the whole world is watching you go through this.
Yeah.
What a horrible,
It'd be pretty bad.
And so you don't want to be another cause of pain when you're interviewing someone like that. So I think it's being curious, trying my best to understand what world is like from their perspective.
Do you call upon things that have happened to you in your life in terms of similarity to make a connection or to try to understand how they may feel based on how it may relate to something that you've experienced?
Yeah, it's a great question. Like, we're having a dialogue now, and I love having a dialogue, and I'm obviously very open because we're just chatting, and I'm forgetting that I'm holding this 5-pound mic.
See, I told you to forget. Your wrist will hurt later, but...
Yeah, I know, exactly. I should have done that shoulder workout today.
Yeah, shouldn't have.
So I find it true also that I've definitely done interviews where someone just asks questions. Here's the next question. Here's the next question. They give nothing of themselves.
Yeah, that seems very...
And I feel so raw and vulnerable, and I don't like
that either.
Yeah. And sometimes I've seen people share something as a manipulative tactic.
Yeah, like, why are you sharing that?
Right.
Yeah, and I feel like it's if I want someone to be vulnerable with me, it's kind of my new philosophy that I've kind of just developed over the years, then I have to be willing to be vulnerable with you.
Right.
And if we can do that, and I can just show you my hand, then maybe we're laying it all out here and we're actually learning something from each other today.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely been with journalists as an interviewee, where I'm like, and what about your situation with that? Because I'm curious, and they're like, oh, I'm the interviewer here.
Like, what it's like to be on the other side,
right? I'm like, oh, yeah, so on the other side, I remember asking a journalist once, well, what's your experience with that? And I think they were like, I'm the interviewer here. So I was like, oh, if you're not going to show any vulnerability, I just feel less comfortable opening up.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there hasn't been a lot of times where I've been on the other side of it, where I really felt like someone was, getting deeper with me in that way as the interviewee, right?
Right.
A couple of times, but I think maybe because I do this so much, I also have this sort of little bit of a guard up just to figure out what the purpose of this is and just being aware of what this story is going to be.
Yeah, and what their agenda is.
If I trust you, I'll tell you, truly. Like, you could probably get out of me, but I don't know. Not everyone would do that, and most people don't offer that sort of connection where they seem like they really care. They're checking down the list, and I don't like that. You're not going to get very deep with me, just like, what do you want me to say? I'll just say that.
Because I wouldn't do it to hurt you. As example, I remember I was interviewing Tom Cruise for Rolling Stone. And
how's Cruz?
How's Cruz? Yeah, I really
Is he cool?
He said, yeah.
He's badass. Yeah. He's cool in real life.
He's so great. He's so great. He's like, cool. I love, I notice these little things, but if he's talking to you, say you're out with him, he's talking to you, he'll keep talking. He never looks over your shoulder at anyone else. He'll keep talking to you, actually like say, oh, we're done. And he'll stay there really present with you. I've never seen,
like, give me an example.
I mean, normally if you're out and you see somebody at a party or something like that, they'll like, oh, hey, what's up? It's so great to see you.
Oh, yeah, hey, man, good to see you,
and
man.
usually their eyes
leaving.
will turn away, then their body will turn away, right? And they're sort of, and he's there, and even though he's probably one of the most in-demand people, he's just planted, and he's giving you his full focus, his full attention. He's fully listening.
I
remember seeing him out after he he invited me to the Scientology celebrity gala after I did the article, and so I went there, and so and that's obviously his comfort zone,
right? Obviously, yeah.
So I just noticed that, and I just noticed him like that with other people, and that he'd really keep eye contact. And you'll notice most people break eye contact and move away.
You do it. You're good at it. Yeah.
Good, thanks. And when he was done, he would actually like keep the eye contact longer. It's a weird thing, but it's hard to say, but his body would move away later when you're done talking. He would keep the eye. He really was great he was just a unique person. But the point I was going to make was this. I was curious about science. I want to understand Scientology. I really, not to like do a takedown or anything like that. I just
like what's the deal with this?
Right. And obviously it's important to you. And so he took me to the Scientology buildings. He pulled out textbooks, taught me about the different Scientology things. So I got to understand it better. I wrote an article that just shared the experience without judging it. Just share the experience if you can read it and judge it. And I remember, and I've done this with other people, I don't even know if it had an effect. I remember he was more open about Scientology afterward, and then some people said some like nasty stuff, and then he kind of shut down about it. But I don't feel like it's my place to judge unless someone's really truly like to judge someone else's life choices unless they're really harming someone else.
It's like, okay, this isn't your jam. That's fine.
Yeah.
If someone's not being hurt, then it's okay. Do whatever you want. Like, I'm not here to rule your life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Like if you're, exactly. Or did you just do a gotcha?
Yeah. I don't know what weird shit you're into.
Right. Exactly. We're going to talk about it. So I remember my editor at Rolling Stone early, Joe Levy said, that your job is to find out what makes people tick. And so I always wondered, like, I want to find out what makes people tick.
Interesting.
Like, you can't meet whoever it is, Tom Cruise, Lady Gaga, whoever I interviewed. And so I will try to meet them for you and give you just that experience of what it might be like.
I was going to say, what makes me tick?
I don't know. I got to interview you for longer. I was trying to figure it out with all the podcasts. I was trying to get there, but you keep asking me questions.
I was dancing around those answers.
Exactly. But I mean, I think we could like ask a couple questions. But I am curious, like, because you did say I want to make the most of it, and so it made me think in my head. Oh, do you feel like there's a window that's open that might close, and you're trying to just?
At one time, I did.
Yeah.
I mean, just from a rational standpoint, not a fear of the unknown necessarily, just that, hey, this is working better than anything else I've done before. I've worked harder than I've ever done before. I'm at this age where I need to grab this by the horns and take control of my career. And that was my mindset. And I think I've been able to provide a buffer for myself now from that hard work, but it's still a grind to me, but not as grueling or, harmful to my mental health as it was maybe at one point, just because it was so hard.
Like, so what would you be like? I'm so curious about this, because if you didn't have a podcast in production or that you're working on,
Like, if this didn't work, like, where would I be?
or it's just a pause,
Server at Chili's, probably.
or not. I get that, but that wasn't more. It's more like just now. You're just who you are. You have all these things, but all the seasons wrap. You're not doing a weekly.
What am I doing?
How would you feel? Would you be antsy? Would you feel like I need to be putting something out?
I thought about that actually, right? And people always, like my dad, he retired. He's never going back to that job. Worked at Lockheed Martin. He's like, fuck this place. I never want to go back there ever. That's awesome. He's living his life. He's just went to Burning Man, which is wild. Just going on trips. He's never working a day in his life like that ever again. I think that I'll always want to do something. I think if I sit still for too long, I'm going to eventually be like, all right, I got an idea. And I'm going to want to be able to actualize that. Maybe they won't be high pressure ideas, or I won't be as reliant on them in some sort of monetary way or, career building way. But I think I'm trying to strive to get to a point where I'm good enough, secure enough that I and my other fellow creators around me can just be able to do that and use our imaginations and try to make shit and take risks and take it seriously because it's fun and we like to do it.
Right.
And that's what I like about life. And I realized that I think I like that more than all the other things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's funny, by the way, how I gotta just note that how cool is it that your dad goes to Burning Man? Your dad went to Burning Man.
I was like,
would you go this year with all the mud?
Yeah, he did.
Oh my God.
Yeah, my mom was there too.
No way.
Yeah.
Holy, that's awesome.
They were like, it's actually really cool. We're stuck here for a few more days, and it's obviously not as bad as they're saying in the news. I was like, wow, remember you said that.
What a beautiful outlook too. I know people who were just,
Yeah, they were like enjoying the extra days, and my dad probably had more than enough stuff, rations. So it was, I was like, that's wild. Just picturing them there, I'm like, I'm not computing that yet, really.
Yeah.
But good for them. Hell yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I was curious too, like about that you always having to be doing. Oh yeah, I remember I was going to ask you this. It's like super. By the way, are you married or dating someone? I can't remember.
Dating somebody.
You're same person.
I was married at one point,
right?
But we got divorced after a year. So
okay, what either the marriage or the dating? What was their biggest complaint about you as far as your work goes?
Oh man, my whole life. Historically, through all my relationships in varying degrees and different chapters in my life, it's been a struggle balancing my work, my workload, my own drive, how much I put into that and how much it may take away from what I can give to somebody else. I think I've definitely gotten better at that and been more aware of it. But the way that I do stuff, which is like it's a good and bad thing. I really throw myself all the way in it to a point that I wouldn't even expect everyone to understand.
Yeah, only
I'm not saying it's the- I'm not saying it's
Donald can
correct.
understand because Donald
definitely knows.
Yeah, because and also
These guys know.
he puts in the hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, too.
And most of the women in my life knew too, I'm sure.
So, I guess the reason I asked, like, and I'll just plant the seed now, like, you can cut this out of the podcast, but as you're listening, as you're talking, like, I'm just thinking, oh, we're working to build and to create and to do things, but there's also another part where we're avoiding things.
Oh, a little bit. Yeah. I mean, it's like, I've just tried to be more and more aware of how I'm feeling when I'm doing the job now. And I remember distinctly when I was editing High Strange, and I was really at a good point, and it was feeling good, and it was clicking, I was deep in it. And I go, you know what? Like, to myself, probably even out loud, consciously said, I think this is my favorite place. And I was like, why is that? I think it's because it's ultimate freedom in it. I'm in my own world that I'm creating, that I am already envisioning sharing with people. So I feel connected already, even though it's just me in a room with headphones on. It feels like I'm, preparing something to share, and I'm like envisioning the connection already. And it just feels like my own little world. And it's like, I think it's just that simple. But like, I'm always like chasing to get back to that point. There's all this other annoying shit you got to do when you make something that isn't as fun.
Yeah, but it's worth it. I know it's funny. It's like the creator thing where it's you struggle so much, but it's kind of worth it at the end. But it's a safe place to connect.
Yes.
And it's not that vulnerable.
I mean, do you feel the same way, or how do you feel?
Unlike intimate relationships, you're in control. You're still, and you're sharing, but you're sort of removed from everybody else. Whereas there is like that vulnerable give and take, discomfort, lack of control, lack of knowing what happens in a relationship. So this is a safer form of relating. Absolutely. Is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, man, I would definitely be one of the first to admit that, I like things to be in my control.
Yeah.
Not in a way that could easily sound. I can also relinquish control. But if I'm in a position where I'm creating something from my brain, I have to, just to be able to understand it and build it, I got to be able to have a level of control that allows me to build it at all.
Yeah.
I think, and it's very liberating though. It's a good feeling to do, and I think I get most of that control desire out through stuff like that.
Yeah. And to answer your question, because I also think you can relinquish control when you have trust.
Yes.
So, but to answer your question, I think it's like to go like back and psychoanalyze myself. Like I grew up just being misunderstood, always being like this. And
people say that a lot, but what do you mean? You were misunderstood growing up?
I mean, I literally know it. I literally know it because my mom wrote this like memoir that she never published, and she was like, talking about my brother. He was always great and sweet, and Neil was always a problem. And
you were a problem child, or in someone's eyes?
In her eyes, I think most parents, and hope this like connects with somebody when they say you were bad as a kid or a problem as a kid, and then you go around saying I was a bad kid, I was a problem child, you just didn't obey, so you were disobedient. They say you're bad to get you to obey, and the one who disobeys, or is what they might call the black sheep or the scapegoat, whatever they call it in the family roles kind of paradigm, is actually the smartest one, who sees this family system is not right. So I'm not going to go along with it.
Are you like a rebel mentality?
I
that can be very generalized and sound like a Western all of a sudden, but it's
right. I guess the simple answer is it's interesting. Like I was both, I'm like half rebel and half complier, even as a child. Like I didn't rebel enough against the strictness. And so going back to just really feeling alone and misunderstood as a child, like just having your intentions interpreted as bad or negative all the time when you're, again, maybe that's why I have empathy for feeling people misunderstood.
Probably, yeah.
I never thought about that. So I turned to writing as a way to communicate without being told I was wrong, right? So whatever I said, it was wrong or it was challenged or wasn't listened to, or somehow there was a fear element put in there. I just couldn't communicate or articulate anything completely without getting sort of ending up defending myself somehow.
Right. So you would spend time thinking about it and organizing your thoughts and putting together something that
Yeah, but if I could,
really speaks to what you're
if
feeling.
I could write it, then I could share it all without anyone interrupting me.
Yeah, just read this.
Yeah, and that's my full thoughts. And then you can have all your own opinions, but I at least articulated it. So for me, then going back to creation, whether it's a podcast or a book or something, I feel like I can really safely tell my story or share my point of view.
How do you remember the title choices for To Live and Die in LA?
Oh, I remember.
Like how did we get there in your eyes?
Yeah.
I want to hear your version.
This is a good discussion. This is funny because it was funny because I was on a podcast with Dave Asprey from Bulletproof, and
Cool.
and I think the title that you wanted was Gonzo.
So that was a title suggestion that I gave.
right.
That is a fact. But what I really said
And I wanted
first
another
is
title that was different. That was
this cannot be called Los Angeles.
Right.
I said you could literally name it anything else.
right.
And we had like 10 names. I was like, I'd take any of them.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about you, and I was like, Gonzo journalism, and like you kind of do that.
Right.
I kind of do that too. I'm trying to give you a freebie. And then you were like, that's a Muppet. And I'm like, right now it is. Or is Neil Strauss the new thing you think of when you think of Gonzo, or are you going to get memed by a Muppet?
Right.
I wasn't trying to fucking...
No, but I remember but I do remember I was attached to Los Angeles, but I just did a book with Rick Rubin, and he has a great philosophy, which is really true. And this is
I
where we
love
ended
all
up.
his philosophies. Never met him, but I love all the things he says about creating.
Yeah. And he says if you both don't agree on something, no one should compromise. You should keep working until you have a better idea you both like. It just means, so if you're not agreeing, it means
So true.
the work's not done.
So true. No, I agree with that.
And this is what we did. I remember going back and forth on the title and even the theme, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to use the theme, but it worked fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like...
It worked, it worked fine. That was
Okay, I'm sorry. It was amazing.
He still doesn't like the
It was
theme.
amazing. It was the best part of the show. Everything else was average. No, I was actually... But like, those kind of moments for me are also good.
Yeah.
I'm never going to get better at this craft or any craft if I'm not wrong. Right? And I think in the creative world, being wrong is a lot grayer. Right? It's not as black and white. But yeah, like I thought it was kind of jarring to me. I didn't see how it would work, but then I learned. I was like, oh, okay, that did work. And I'm like, I really didn't think that in my head.
And you were right on the title. Los Angeles would have been a horrible title.
Yeah, really from just an SEO standpoint. Like, what's the show called? Los Angeles. Los Angeles? No, Lost Angeles.
Right.
Oh, no, LOST
Right.
Angeles. Oh, okay. What happened there? Someone lost? No, they're missing.
Right.
Okay.
Gonzo the Muppet? You mean that little blue guy?
See, we have two good arguments here, though. We're both right. See? We're both wrong.
And by the way,
We both need-
I really enjoy that. There's a thought, and I say this to everybody who has a book editor or publisher or anything like that. I hope I was never. You can be honest.
Yeah.
I was never like abrasive about it or.
No, you never
upset
were.
about it. Okay.
I was always, respected how much you were open to constructive criticism. And I tried to be the same. I don't take it personally like that. And I'm curious, if you actually have a thought, I want to hear what it is.
Right.
I'm not going to just assume I'm right and just tunnel vision my way out of there. I would rather know more information about it. And if you're going out of your way to share that with me, I feel like I should listen to that. And so it was always cool to be able to actually share my thoughts. And I was just giving you my top of line, knee-jerk gut reactions to stuff and not trying to overthink it, to kind of be more from like a consumer standpoint a little bit, where it's like, how's this look when you're not buried in it? Because I know how it is when I get buried in it, and I need someone like Donald or you even to say, hey, it looks like this. I go, oh, it does? Well, let's do it differently then, right?
Yeah. And so the big key that I realized early on from having books published, where you're arguing with your editor over a name or a title or just not even arguing, just having a disagreement over the cover. And I've seen people literally leave their deals, leave their publishing
Over that,
publishers
right.
because over these things, and they get so angry about it.
Yeah.
But what you're not realizing is, or what people don't realize is, we both have the same interest in mind, which we want the best possible podcast.
Yes.
That person's your partner. You don't need to get upset. They're not trying to sabotage you or mess you up. Like literally, you both want the best podcast possible. So you both have the same goal. So you can work, even if you have a different strategy for getting there, you can work together on it. So realizing these.
That's murky sometimes, though. In this case, that was genuinely true. Some people I found just want to have their touch on it, and they'll go really far out of their way and potentially bastardize other, better, stronger, more valuable components to something just because they want to have something that was their idea a part of this.
Yeah.
I don't care like that.
I
want it to be good if it's my idea or not.
If you name that person, I'll name one of the psychopaths.
His name's Neil Strauss.
That's funny. Payne Lindsey was my
right. Perfect. Yeah. We learned a lot today.
Exactly.
Well, good luck on your ride home.
Exactly.
I'm in the backseat already.
Exactly.
It's no one it's not anyone in particular I'm thinking of in this moment. It's just stuff I've ran into over time and in different settings, from TV to podcasts to the business side and the extra creative side, editors, and but also met people who are willing to learn. And I know that it is a thing that you have to get better at, even just accepting feedback. I think a lot of people aren't necessarily the best. I don't want to hear how you think it could be better. I wish it was already the best, but if you can accept that, you can make the best thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think it's true. It's so important, but it is tough when there are people who just want their fingers, their imprints on it. And then you often realize that, okay, there's a need underneath that. I always think, what's the need underneath that, and what is it really saying? So they're like, they want significance. And so somehow you can sometimes please their need for significance without giving the strategy.
Yeah, exactly. We can probably solve that, right? I want you to feel like that you're a part of this. Like, how can we do that?
Yeah.
But if we care about the final product, we should all sit here and objectively say, hey, these are the better ideas. We should go with this combination of stuff, right?
Yeah. I had this epiphany a few months ago, which is to value people more than my way of doing things.
Okay.
And what that means is, if there's somebody who has an idea and you're sitting in the room and they throw out the idea, just say, no, that won't work. That's making your thing more important than them trying to contribute and share an idea, even if it's not an idea you love. Or even in relationships, like people, how many times did I tell you, just take the trash out and put in the 2-ply bags, tie a knot at the top so the rats don't get in. Like, geez, you have no respect for me. Like, do you want to be in love with this person? And can you still be in love with someone who uses a 1-ply bag and doesn't tie it, or whatever it is? People make get so specific about their way of doing things that they scare off the people they work with. They scare off the people who love them and care about them.
Yeah, that's so true.
To not make your way of doing things more important than people.
So if someone in the room, like a creative discussion, says some idea and you're inside your head, you're like, that's a terrible idea. You're thinking that. What do you say to them if they're asking you what your thoughts are in that moment?
I bet to them it's a good idea, so I want to understand how it may be good to them.
So you want them to explain the idea to you?
So I'll just say, tell me what your thought or what your vision is for.
Right.
Or if it's just short, I'll just say, I'll write that down now. That's the list of stuff to consider.
And then when they leave you, that shit sucked. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No. But here's what I find. I've definitely, and I wonder if you've done this too, I've definitely knee-jerk said no to something that turned out to be the right idea later.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's why I said, with my gut reaction is that I've also been incorrect. And I know that. And that's why I'll have a feeling, and I will intentionally check myself, look in the mirror, and try to say, hey, slow down.
Yeah.
Let's see. That's more information.
Yeah.
But and if it's right, it's like, okay, I remember that if I did a pivot, then it's like, oh, I remember that too. That, hey, that one time you felt like that, but you quickly learn because you tried to dive deeper into it that this was not correct. Actually, I've talked to you about some of these things on a deeper level before, not for an extended period of time, per se, but I've always learned from you and been curious how you navigate the world, and especially being a journalist, and how you deal with all the nuance of this stuff. And I think I learned even more that there's some similarities that I maybe just could have thought were there, but now I know are there. I was joking with them last night. I was like, tomorrow's going to be interviewer interviews interviewer. And I'm like, I already know he's going to come in here and school my ass.
Did I school? I don't know.
I'm gonna throw a little monkey wrench over there, and he's like, "What's that? Look over there." And I'm like, "Anyways."
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly.
But like playfully, it was fun just to like, I'm like, you could be the guy who could get that interview out of me.
Right.
So maybe one day you will.
Yeah.
Fun. Yeah. I would do it. I'd like the experience too.
Yeah, I was even thinking of suggesting, we should flip it around for your show one day.
No, I love it. Yeah, it'd be fun. Yeah.
Do it. Yeah, because I'm curious about, like I said earlier, the things that drive you, and I'll probably like really go deeper.
You'd help people to get them out, honestly.
Yeah.
And I'd just tell you the truth and try to navigate.
And it's not really to get them out. It's actually, this sounds like it might come off wrong, but I'll just say what I was thinking, which is almost through the discussion, it can help you understand it better.
Yeah, man, exactly.
Like the way when we were talking and I realized, this is why I have so much empathy for people feeling misunderstood growing up. And so I always feel
I'm open to having new realizations about why I do what I do.
Yeah. It's
and all the stuff in between.
Yeah.
You know.
Awesome, man. We're good?
That was awesome. Yeah, dude. Thank you so much.
Talking to Death is a production of Tenderfoot TV and iHeartPodcasts, created and hosted by Payne Lindsey. For Tenderfoot TV, executive producers are Payne Lindsey and Donald Albright. Co-executive producer is Mike Rooney. For iHeartPodcasts, executive producers are Matt Frederick and Alex Williams, with original music by Makeup and Vanity Set. Additional production by Mike Rooney, Dylan Harrington, Sean Nerney, Dayton Cole, and Gustav Wild for Cogito. Production support by Tracy Kaplan, Mara Davis, and Trevor Young. Mixing and mastering by Cooper Skinner and Dayton Cole. Our cover art was created by Rob Sheridan. Check out our website, talkingtodeathpodcast.com.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Talking to Death. This series is released weekly, absolutely free. But if you want ad-free listening and exclusive bonuses, you can subscribe to Tenderfoot Plus on Apple Podcasts or go to tenderfootplus.com.